The mask came off on a Tuesday's day, not with a dramatic confrontation, not with a tearful confession, not with any of the theatrical fireworks we imagine when we think that the moment someone reveals who they truly are. It came off in a restaurant over pasta when the waiter brought the wrong order. The person sitting across from you, the one who had spent months presenting themselves as patient, emotionally evolved, spiritually grounded, turned to that waiter with a coldness so sudden, so surgical, it stopped your fork mid-air. It lasted 4 seconds, maybe five. Then the mask was back. The smile returned. The warmth flooded back into their voice like nothing had happened. They looked at you and laughed softly, rolling their eyes. These things happen. But you had seen it, that flicker behind the curtain. That version of them they had never intended to show you. And somewhere deep in your nervous system, something ancient and knowing whispered, "Pay attention." Carl Jung spent decades mapping the architecture of the human psyche, and one of his most enduring insights was this. Every person walks through the world wearing two faces. The first is the persona, the polished, rehearsed, socially acceptable version of the self. The second is the shadow, everything the persona is designed to conceal. The impatience, the contempt, the hunger, the fear, the rawness that has never been fully domesticated. Most people believe they are their persona. That is the first mistake. The second mistake is believing someone else's persona is the whole of them. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot know a person by listening to how they describe themselves. You cannot know them through their carefully curated highlights, their polished explanations, or their most articulate moment. Those are all performances, and human beings are extraordinary performers. You know a person by watching what they do when the performance stops, which brings us to the two behaviors. The two quiet, almost invisible patterns that cut through every layer of performance and expose the bedrock of who someone actually is. Not what they claim to be, not what they aspire to be. Who they are right now in this version of their life, in this season of their character. The first behavior is this. Watch how they treat people who can do nothing for them. This is older wisdom than psychology, older than philosophy. It is the kind of knowing that lives in the gut, passed down through generations, people who learned the hard way what it costs to misread someone's character. But we keep forgetting it. We keep getting distracted by how someone treats us in the early stages when we are new and interesting and full of potential usefulness, when we are still being evaluated, when the performance is at its most polished, the waiter tells you everything, the janitor tells you everything. The intern who has no power, no status, no leverage. Watch how someone speaks to that person when there is no social reward for being kind, when no one impressive is watching, when warmth would cost them something and coldness costs them nothing. Because here is what most people do not understand about cruelty. It rarely announces itself. It does not arrive wearing a villain's costume. It arrives in a tone of voice, in the absence of a thank you, in the decision not to make eye contact with someone deemed beneath the social threshold. Character is not performed in the grand moments. It is leaked in the small ones. Think of the people you have respected most deeply in your life. Not the most charismatic, not the most successful, the ones you genuinely trusted. I would wager that a defining quality almost all of them share is this. They are consistent across audiences. The version of them that shows up when they are with the powerful is the same version that shows up when they are with the powerless. That consistency is not accidental. It is the fingerprint of genuine character. And its absence, that gap between how someone treats the useful and how they treat the invisible, is one of the most reliable warning signs a human being can offer you. Let that land for a moment because it is easy to nod along to this idea intellectually. It is much harder to apply it in real time, especially when we are drawn to someone, when we want the story they are presenting to be true. We rationalize, they were stressed, they were having a bad day, you don't know what they're going through, and sometimes that is true. Everyone has bad days. Grace is not a weakness, but a bad day does not fundamentally alter your character, it reveals it. When pressure is applied, what comes out is what was already inside. Squeeze an orange and you get orange juice, not because of the squeeze, but because of what the orange was made of all along. The second behavior is subtler. It's a different kind of attention, the kind that lives not in your eyes, but in the space between your thoughts. Watch what they do in the silence between their words, not what they say. What they do not say, not how they explain themselves, how they behave when there is nothing to explain. Actions taken in private, or believed to be private, are the closest thing to a soul signature that human behavior offers. Here is what that looks like in practice. Someone who is generous only when generosity is visible is not generous. They are strategic. Someone who is honest only when they believe they will be caught is not honest. They are calculating risk. Someone who is kind only when kindness benefits them socially is not kind. They are performing kindness because it pays a dividend they find worthwhile. The philosopher Aristotle called this the difference between seeming good and being good. Seeming good is easy. Being good in the dark when no reward is coming and no audience is watching, that is where character actually lives. And the reason this matters so profoundly is not because you need to judge everyone around you. Judgment is not the point. The point is discernment. The point is building a life populated with people whose private behavior and public behavior are the same, or close enough to the same, that the gap between them is honest human imperfection rather than calculated deception. Because here is what no one tells you about the cost of surrounding yourself with people who perform their virtues rather than embody them. You start to lose your own calibration. When you spend enough time with people who are one thing in public and another in private, you begin to doubt your own perceptions. You gaslight yourself. You explain away the moments that felt wrong because the story they tell is so much more coherent than the truth your nervous system is whispering. And that erosion of your own instinct is one of the most expensive things a human being can experience. So, what do you do with this? You start watching differently, not with suspicion. Suspicion is a prison, with curiosity, with the patient, loving attention of someone who understands that people reveal themselves constantly, that the truth is always leaking through the cracks in the performance, and that your only job is to stay awake enough to see it. You watch how they treat the waiter when the evening is going badly. You notice whether their private actions carry the same values they announce in public. You pay attention to the micro moments, the 4-second flash of coldness, the eyes that do not soften when the smile does, the generosity that only appears when the room is watching. You stop trying to judge these things and start trying to simply see them. Because here is the final, most important thing. This is not just about other people. Jung's great insight was not just that other people wear masks, it was that you wear one too. And the deepest, most transformative work a human being can do is not to become an expert in reading the masks of others. It is to sit quietly with your own. To ask yourself, with honesty that costs something, is the person I present to the world the person I am when no one is watching? Are you kind to the invisible people? Does your private behavior carry the same values you speak aloud in company? When the pressure comes, and it always comes, what leaks out? Not as a judgment, as a question worth living inside. Because the two behaviors that reveal everyone else's character are the same two behaviors that reveal yours. The mask always slips. It has to. The only question is whether you are awake enough in yourself and in others to see it when it does.